If we now move north of the border, we're going to go up to Scotland and talk about some of the controversy that's been happening over the last few weeks, really, with both Rangers and Celtic. And we start with Rangers, actually. They were playing Dundee on Wednesday night at Dens Park, and there was quite a bit of controversy, really, that happened. The game was delayed due to traffic issues. That got moved back to a 8:30 kickoff. Then the game was paused for 18 minutes because Rangers fans let off flares in the stands, and the fire alarm was raised. Players obviously get evacuated off the pitch. Paul, given the sort of situation around the club with that, do you think the club are responsible, or do you think actually that's on the fans? And really, what can be done to resolve issue that's kind of as awkward as that?
I think we've experienced problems of similar ilk in the Premier League. And if fans are going to bring pyrotechnics to games, it's difficult to lay the blame at the foot of the football club, especially if you're away from home. There's an element of crowd security, crowd safety. The airport security that you see at some grounds is not necessarily as rigorous at others. Yes, the club will say and do the right things and try and be seen to be doing the right things. But at the end of the day, the fans have to take the responsibility to themselves. If they're not allowed to bring them in, you're not supposed to bring them in. But, we live in a culture where not everyone follows the rules, unfortunately.
Yeah, and obviously, luckily, there were no injuries caused by the flares. Wayne, what do you think the outcome of this is going to be? How do you, police no pyrotechnics at the ground? Do you think there's longer searches involved? How do they actually ensure that this doesn't happen in future in the future at football matches in Scotland?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing, as Paul said, is it was an away match, wasn't it, at Dens Park? It wouldn't have been the same level of security as what you get at Ibrox or Parkhead, for example. And I think that was a massive factor. It's obviously very organised from a section of Rangers fans, and it was quite incredible actually how the level of sort of the pyrotechnics display, wasn't it? It was made sort of remarkable pictures, not necessarily in a good way, and I think a lot of Rangers fans have distanced themselves from it, have said it was a disgrace and was embarrassing, and I would agree with that as well, because the club do have some level of responsibility, and the likelihood is that with Police Scotland now involved, that there will be punishment for Rangers. There's been reports that could be a heavy fine. A lot of sort of senior fans are saying they're expecting a heavy fine, and then ultimately, the club are affected very negatively, and also there's the kind of perception of the club and all the associated things. So I don't think this is certainly, it's not a positive thing for Rangers. There was huge delays also for the players. I mean, if you're playing in a match like that and then you've got to go off the pitch for, was it nearly 20 minutes, wasn't it? And that would definitely affect your own preparation, your own sort of recovery. I mean, Paul, from a player's point of view, if you're off the pitch when you've just started, I mean, your muscles then get cold, don't they? So then you've almost got to do second warm-up. So it actually affects the integrity of the match itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, when it starts affecting the game, and the game having to be stopped, and it affects the quality of the game. It affects the quality of the game that you're watching and what you're absorbing as a consumer. Players, stop-starting games is always tough. You see long stoppages through injuries and illness through games, and they're always very, very difficult to regain the same momentum in the game. And it is difficult as a player, like delayed kickoffs are. Sometimes you can't help them with traffic and teams arriving late at the ground, but you normally have a routine, a match day routine, and anything that throws a footballer off his routine, it's not normal, and we freak out.
Yeah, I heard quite a few Dundee fans actually saying on Twitter they were actually quite scared by the pyrotechnics, and actually it was quite a sight. Looking at those photos and videos on social media, it was quite remarkable really to think of how many actually they managed to bring into the ground. I think that's what was more astonishing, was how many fans actually managed to bring all those different pyrotechnics, obviously through different means, into the stadium. If we move over to the other side of Glasgow and we talk about Celtic, this week obviously Celtic's ultra supporters group, the Green Brigade, were banned by the club, and they obviously said that was because they were defying the stadium rules. And the last sort of reason for it was that they were bringing Palestinian flags into home games when they were told not to. Paul, were the Celtic board right to ban the Green Brigade, or should something else have been done actually to maybe potentially stop this ban from happening?
I think it's a very difficult one. I think there's two clear sides to this story. The club trying to protect the club's image and the fines that it's receiving from UEFA, and external fines and sanctions that are going to get placed on the club. But at the same time, they have to be careful with a blanket ban. of banning a section of supporters without chance to reply. And I think the statement the club put out, it wasn't just because of the flags and the banners. There was previous incidents at away grounds, and accusations have been made against certain groups of supporters, and it were a guilty until proven innocent stance was taken, if you like, and it was a blanket ban rather than an individual with a right of reply. And I think there's a lot of supporters that feel hard done to. Only reading myself from what I've read and what I've looked from the outside looking in, I've no personal affiliation to any club, but what they say, this group of supporters had the flags, and there was other supporters in the stadium that weren't necessarily sat in the same section that were showing the same support but didn't face the same sanctions. So I think there's a strong argument from both sides. The club are understandably trying to protect their image, but I think they have to do it in a way that they look after their own fans as well.
Yeah, and Wayne, another Celtic Ultras group actually walked out. You know, they walked out on Wednesday night. They had up a banner as well, blaming the Scottish police, and they sort of walked out in unity with the Green Brigade. How do you think this is going to be resolved? Are the club going to have to come out and sort of make a statement? Do you think the fans are going to have a meeting with the club? How is this all going to unfold?
I mean, the Celtic board have, obviously they put out a statement saying there's been loads of conversations in the background. They've spoken continuously with the Green Brigade and the Ultras fans as effectively are, and told them they need to curb their behaviour, and it's creating sort of safety issues and security issues at matches. In terms of how it's been resolved, I think Celtic will say they have resolved it by banning these fans, and I think it's a really good point Paul's made about they've just done a blanket ban and they've not kind of picked out almost the individual fans responsible, and that seems almost kind of like the easiest thing to do, isn't it, rather than sort of selectively picking out the main sort of culprits involved. I mean, Frank McAvenny, one of our pundits, he actually said something quite interesting, I think to you, Lewis, I think it was yesterday, where a lot of these Green Brigade fans have actually been moving other fans from their seats during matches, so they can all sit together. And a lot of these fans they're moving are older fans who have got a season ticket or whatever at the home match, or have got a ticket for an away match, and then they've been moved out of seat, which sounds pretty horrific, and also intimidating, doesn't it? If you're finally just going to watch the match with a child, whatever, or elderly person, then you're getting kicked out of your seat for a load of young guys in hoodies who are trying to sort of partly hide their identity. So there's so many issues involved with this. It's very difficult, I think, for the club to get right. I don't think they have got it right, and it is not going to be easy to resolve, because these fans, these ultras, they do improve the atmosphere. They are obviously passionate Celtic followers, and they think they add to the match and they add to the atmosphere of the match. It's going to be incredibly difficult, but then, on the safety side, I think that has to come first as well, doesn't it? So, this could run on months and years, and I expect that to happen.
Yeah, well, I think that wraps up really our whole